Have you ever asked yourself, what is the origin of the Pokemon world? Where did Pokemon come from? And what is the real story behind everything? Now you might be thinking, actually Arceus was the first Pokemon ever created, existed, and he created Dialga Palkia, he created the universe, and blah blah blah. And while you're technically correct, we have to remember that the Arceus origin story didn't come around until Generation 4. That's a full 10 years after the original release of Red and Green in 1996. So while that's currently the explanation for the origins of the Pokemon universe, it's just a massive retcon. It's a retcon. So, what was the original story? How was the world of Pokemon explained back in 1996? Well, buckle in, bucko, because we're about to go on a wild ride. Now, it's important to note two things before we get started. First of all, most of this information is coming from the original Pokédex field book released alongside the original games in Japan that was never translated into English until very recently. And two, very little of this is actually canon anymore thanks to the Arceus retcon. So treat this video as a look into the past of what could have been for the Pokemon universe and not what it actually is. This is more of just a fun little trip. So let's get started. The first evidence of Pokemon can be traced back to about 2 million years ago, but it wasn't until the 18th century that a French author by the name of Count Tajirin began the first systemic study of these strange creatures. Now at this point in time, there are only about 30 species of Pokemon that have been documented. Now Count Tajirin left behind numerous sketches and data into the study of these mysterious creatures. This data slowly spread its way through Western Europe, moving through England, Germany, Spain, and Italy, but it wasn't until the 19th century that the academic movement found its home in Japan. It was actually 1899 when Professor Nishinomori published his groundbreaking paper titled An Observation of the Evolution of Pikachu. This was the first time that a Pokemon had been documented to actually evolve. Until this point, everyone thought Pikachu and Raichu were, two different dudes. But now we know they're one and the same, just one is an evolution of the other. Now there's actually one other major discovery that could be credited to Professor Nishinomori, and that is the discovery that Pokemon share the ability to shrink, hence the term pocket monsters. Now there's no delicate way of saying how he figured this out, but essentially he was experimenting on a primate and overdosed it, causing it to faint and shrink as a basic survival instinct. So yeah, Pokemon being able to shrink wasn't something they just added into Legends Arceus. It's been there since the beginning, just never really talked about it too much. At this point in time, about 80 species of Pokemon were discovered. So now it's really important to note that the Pokédex book specifically mentions these places. It refers to England and not Galar. The point is, originally the world of Pokemon was our own planet Earth, and not some mirror of Earth that we recognize as the Pokemon universe today. This is really important to know because it sets the stage for everything else, including the original origin of Pokemon themselves. Now before we get into that, let's fast forward to the year 1996, and let me just tell you, Pokemon research is thriving. There is a total of 150 species officially discovered, and the man leading the show is none other than the famous Professor Oak. It's here that we finally get an answer to the question, okay, where did Pokemon come from? And the way we get this answer is a little surprising. There is a section of the book that features a lecture by Professor Oak himself, and he's discussing, of all Pokemon, Zubat. During the lecture, Professor Oak talks about bats. Not Zubat, but like actual real-world bats. And how, while they do spend most of their time in the dark, they actually have pretty good eyesight. They just also happen to develop a strong sense of echolocation and hearing through the process of evolution. Darwinian evolution. Real-world evolution. In the case of Zubats, not only did they gain echolocation, but its eyes disappeared entirely. These differences between bats and Zubats, Professor Oak says, can be explained as a result of Pokemon and animals' divergent evolutions. So, there we go. Pokemon evolved from animals. Zubats evolved alongside bats, just from a shared ancestor. Probably meaning all Pokemon and animals have a shared ancestor at some point in their evolutionary line. Now, the book isn't really clear if the evolution in question is actual scientific evolution or evolution as we know it in the Pokemon world, which is really more like metamorphosis, but yeah. Pokemon evolved from animals. The world of Pokemon is our own world, and really when you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, how can Pikachu be the mouse Pokemon if they have no idea what a mouse is? Ghastly and Raichu's original Pokédex entry both mention them being able to take down an Indian elephant. Lickitung is said to be able to extend its tongue like a chameleon. The original artwork for the Old Amber has a mosquito stuck in it, and I understand that's a reference to Jurassic Park. I'm just saying it's a real-world mosquito. Not to mention all the real-world animals that showed up in the anime, like the mongoose, fish, that time Ash was dressed up like a cow. Even as recently as Sun and Moon, we see a starfish on Mimikyu's bucket disguise. Look how cute that is! So in summary, the world of Pokemon originally was our own world, with Pokemon evolving alongside animals and not in place of them. I'm interested in hearing what you guys have to say about this original storyline for the franchise. Do you like the direction it was going in, or do you prefer the Arceus retcon? Now personally, I definitely enjoy this original story. I will admit, however, that the Arceus retcon made it feel like a much more flushed out world. If the world of Pokemon we knew today was just our world with a few monsters sprinkled around, it loses some of the magic that makes Pokemon what it is, at least in my opinion. So, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to give it a like, and remember, the more likes we get on this video, the better I feel about myself. And also, if you're enjoying the channel, be sure to subscribe. I have a bunch of videos planned to come out soon, and can't wait to share them with you guys. Let me know if you guys have any ideas for videos you would like to see me cover, and until next time, this has been Nintendo Quest.